Now it's recording. Hi everybody. So we got the swivel piece worked out, and we're getting ready to start here. Thanks for making it this far into the day without going back to your room and doing a bunch of work. I appreciate that. Session today is password and password management. I hope I got the title right. The presenter today is one of the folks from my shop in North Shore School District, is Ski Kakarowski here. Ski has been working in North Shore for how long now? 14 years, and performs a couple of miracles for us every single day. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to turn it over to Ski and let him have it. Thanks, Sam.
I'm hoping to make this more of an interactive session. I'd like to hear what other people do, what their pain points are, and maybe between us all we can find some solutions that might work. So the first part is going to be hopefully a lot of questions and answers, kind of like the IT general tech roundtable that happened yesterday. The second part, I'm going to talk a little bit about the new Nist Standards. Has anybody heard of the new Nist Standards for passwords? Nobody. It came out last June, and it totally turns over how you guys should do passwords, top to bottom. Anything you thought about got blown out of the water. The reason that's important is that's what everybody else is going to start using. You can actually go to your boss and say, hey, we need to do it like this because the government agency says this is the way you should do it. And it gives you a little bit of work to do that. So everybody's run into this, right? You know, you've got that stuff on the beginning and you just can't, users get really frustrated and stuff. And hopefully if you do something on the bottom, it might be better. The other thing you have to worry about is this. I don't know about you, but almost all of our phishing attacks at North Shore probably come from this problem. The user has one password and they use it to log into every single site, including all the gaming sites and download sites that they can think of, right? And then the person gets a hold of the password and proceeds to crack our email server and send a bunch of spam out. This happens roughly 3 to 4 times a week from North Shore right now. And I'm not sure what we can ever do to stop it, unless we do it after the fact. So now, a couple of things are, what are somebody's pain points around passwords? I know mine, but I'd like to hear what some of yours are.
Post-it notes?
What?
Post-it notes.
Post-it notes, yes. That can be a pain point, yeah.
Well, one of mine, and for the staff that I work with, is you have so many accounts, you kind of forget, do I even have an account with this system? So you do use the same password, so you can try it and see if it works.
Yeah.
You don't remember if you have an account.
So people have got lots and lots of different accounts, and how are they supposed to manage them and stuff? So what's the best way to deal with that?
Getting K2 kids logged on.
Yes. So you have different age groups you got to worry about. Little kids all the way up to adults, staff. Anything else in pain points? Okay. What actually works for you in dealing with like little kids, K through 12? I mean K through 2. Anybody has a good solution for that?
QR codes.
What?
QR codes.
QR codes? Great. So what type of system do you have that does QR codes?
Well, it's a vendor, so.
Okay.
The solution does that, so.
Okay.
Just in transparency.
All right. Is anybody actually doing QR codes at a school district? Yeah.
Use Clever.
Okay.
Clever badges, with pop-up stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Clever's been a good solution for dealing with that.
We use that to classroom, I'll say.
Mm-hmm. How about staff that have lots and lots of passwords? Anybody have a good solution for that yet? No? Okay. How about the Post-it note problem? Nothing. Do people know where your passwords are being hacked? Do you understand the attack vectors on your systems? By that I mean, for example, Lawrence Livermore Labs did a study, and they actually realized that Post-it notes are actually their preferred way of having people remember passwords as long as they put it inside a drawer. because nobody inside the labs was hacking the password. It was people from the outside. So if you gave the person a really nice long password or something, and they put on a post-it note inside a drawer, that worked out to be really good for this defense lab, because they didn't have to worry about internal people. School district, it's a lot different. You know, kid sees, oh, post-it note with password, great, let's go try it out, right?
I've heard someone say, take that post-it note, put it in the wallet, so treat it like it's money.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Treat it like it's money.
Couldn't see it. Yeah, yeah.
Anybody have any other ideas on that? Okay. One of the things that we have at North Shore is definitely password reuse. What we're attempting to do is let people know that you should have at least 2 classes of passwords, one for your banks and one for everything else, maybe. Another issue is people sharing passwords. That's a big one. A teacher shares a password with the sub, but shares it with somebody else, and pretty soon everybody in the school knows the password. Another one that we have is, how do I fix the system if I can't get on as a teacher? I'm on a Mac and we need to fix their system, we have to know their password to get on. Does anybody have a solution for that problem? No. What we've done is we have a system where we can temporarily set a password to a known one and then set it back. So I can log on to external systems, whatever, as a teacher to find out what's going on.
Do you have an password?
No, because we set their password to a temporary one. The help desk people knows what the temporary one. It's the same for anybody. And then when they're done working on the system, they will then set it back to whatever the user's password is, and they don't know what it is. The system behind the line does all the switching back and forth. Okay, the new Nist standards. These are some links. I'll make sure the presentation will be up. The reason I bring these things up is because they really do turn things upside down in terms of password and password management. So first, they basically say you favor the user. Anything that makes the user's job harder, they're going to cheat and get around whatever system you put in place, period. So you make your verifier do the work, and if you're doing something that doesn't provably increase the strength of the password, you don't do it. So for example, longer is better. If you run the math, no matter how many word characters you use in an 8-character password, if you do a 10-character password, you're probably going to be better off. Right? Another big problem you have to worry about is English words come in certain patterns. You got to get people not to use a real common pattern, because they're not looking at the entire search space, they're looking at the small search space of English sentences. What I like to do when I talk about this with other people is, especially if you're bilingual, throw in some words from another language. That really screws up most hacking tools. Accept all printable characters. This includes the space. How many passwords have you that have a space in it right now? I almost guarantee it's 0. But the problem is you type in a password and the guy says, oh, you can't use that character. You're pissing off the user, they're getting upset. And when we actually forced our users to change their password 10 years ago, we haven't had the ability to force that since because it was so painful. We actually were watching, and we had one teacher that went through about 50 tries before and we're trying to figure out, how do we call this person without letting them know that we've been watching what's going on, and talk to them and say, hey, we understand there's a problem, would you like some help? It was really sad, because we were using the traditional method. You gotta have upper space, upper lowercase characters and things like that. So they found out that that just doesn't work. Screen against a dictionary of common words. We use things, we're in Seattle, so we use things like Seahawks, North Shore, all the zip codes in the area, stuff like that. They actually found and did a statistical study that dictionaries should be around 100,000 words. If it's bigger, you're screening out too many things. If it's smaller, you're not catching enough. download a dictionary off the internet, throw in all your special words, and you can create that really quick. And then just have your tool scream against it. If it has one of these words in it, it's not a valid password. And you can have a response back to the user, say, hey, you used a common word, I'm sorry, you can't use it. So they get feedback. Throttle attempts to 100 per 30 days. If you've ever used a bank, you'll see things that say, hey, if you log in 5 times and you fail, we're not going to allow you to log in. You need to call us, right? So this is now the latest recommendation. Another one that's really interesting, you have the option to actually display the password when the user's typing it. Why? The user types in the first one, and then they type in the second one, and they don't match. And the user gets upset. And you do that, and you do that, and pretty soon what they're doing is they're typing in the same thing with a number or 2 numbers at the end, and they really aren't changing anything. So what they found out is that when they looked at people, most people don't enter their passwords in nice public spaces. They do it at their desk when nobody else is looking over their shoulder, so it's perfectly fine to have it display the password when they're typing it. It's not a security risk. Right? And then they also say that many things should use 2-factor security. By that I mean, you log in, but you have to have some other device, typically your cell phone, to verify who you are. Next thing, these are the don'ts. Those are the do's, these are the don'ts. No complexity rules. Yay. Nothing. Just the length is the only thing that counts. And you use any of the ASCII character set. But other than that, no complexity rules. No uppercase, lowercase, number, weird character, whatever. Imagine how happy that would make users, right? No password hints. Too many people know stuff about us with social media and things that when you type in, a password hint to recover your password, somebody else can guess it. It's just too easy with social media and all the stuff that we put out there about us that password hints and knowledge base authorization to recover a password is really a bad idea. If somebody wants to get in, they can go on social media and figure out probably what your password hints will be. No time-based exploration. If you have a good password, why change it? If it's a solid password of maybe 30, 40 characters, some phrase that's really weird, don't change it. Don't ask your users to change it. At North Shore, what we're looking at doing, we're actually hoping, keeping our fingers crossed, that we will be allowed to force the users to change their passwords this fall. And what we're looking at doing is saying, if you pick a good password, you don't have to change it. If you really want to pick that bad password, you got to change it in a year. Right? Carrot and stick. We're hoping to do that. Nist now says that email and voice over IP phone numbers are very bad for 2-factor auth. You can't assume that the person you think is at the other end of that number or that email. It's too easy to break into it. They actually were not happy about SMS on regular phones. Again, this is NIST, so they're for all the DoD sites too. It really doesn't, so some of this doesn't apply to us. They do think that SMS is okay for 2-factor authorization. You shouldn't use it for account changes though. Example I can give you is USAA, big banking insurance site. My boss has USAA, and they don't require you to change a phone number on the account. You just need a little bit of personal information about the person. And then once you change the phone number, you can use 2-factor auth to get to the entire account. He found that out when somebody broke into his account and started moving things and taking things. And he had a long discussion with USAA about why was this person able to get in so easily. Passive biometrics is really where NIST would like to see us going. That means everything from your fingerprint, your eye, how fast you type, what type of machine you're on. They can collect so much information about that computer, they can say, oh, you're on that computer because it types like this. The chips have got these weird characteristics that when we see them on the internet and stuff, that they do things like this, we know it's you. It'd be really hard to fake that. There's literally over 100 different passive things that they can measure. So depending on the system, you can play with this. For today, it's probably gonna be things like SMS to your phone, you hit it with your fingerprint or something, being you're authenticated, two-factor auth. I would say at school districts, you probably wanna use that for your HR department. Hopefully your senior staff, at least when they're getting into the payroll, HR type systems and things like that. Probably not anywhere else. Your your young kids, you can do the pictogram type stuff or the QR codes. Any questions about this part of the Nist stuff? So I'm hoping you guys can go home and maybe make passwords easier for everybody. Again, there are definitely unique aspects to being in a school district. Do we treat young and old students the same? Do we deal with staff people? Yeah. We can't. So for example, in North Shore, all our young kids get a simple password. Then at 4th grade, they get a little bit more complex password that's based on their birth date. And then we would prefer that by 6th grade, they're asked to change that. I've got one middle school that will actually change that pretty reliably. The rest of them pretty much don't. And there isn't much we can do about it. We end up with 2 or 3 kids a year that guess each other's passwords and then do nasty things. Again, you know, if you only have that much of a problem, it's not that big of an issue, right? It's a potential issue. Do we treat students and staff the same? What about non-staff and students, your contractors, your parents? Like, how do you generate and provision passwords for their access to the systems? Right? Okay, management. What tools do people use today? Hands? Managing your passwords. Okay? And let me qualify that. You got internal use, and then also use for all your users and staff and stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what we used to.
Okay. That works out pretty good for you?
Can you repeat that?
Psychotic secret server.
Little secret server. We use KeyPass for some of our internal groups. We don't have a standard yet. I would like to be able to have some sort of standard LastPass or Psychotic or something for a lot of people. How do you keep them in sync across all your apps? Like Google and Microsoft would like to have you change it there and have everybody authenticate to them. That's one option. You can set up your own SAML server, do it there. What we've done is, because we have enough apps that don't speak SAML or OAuth, we actually have our own program that's homegrown, and it will stuff the password into the various apps. Another thing to consider is, do you have a separate password for your student record system or your HR system than all the other passwords that people use? Or do they use one password for everything? We actually have our our HR business system uses a separate password from everywhere else. And I just found out to my horror that it basically takes whatever you type, uppercases it, so it gets rid of all the complexity rules, which nobody knew about, and then goes ahead and sticks it in the database and truncates everything over 12 characters or something. I don't know what the number is. So no matter how long you type, it doesn't care. So that's another thing you need to worry about is think about the apps, ask the app or the owner or the vendor, how does it actually store the password? Because what you think you might be getting is not what you're always getting. How do you deal with password politics? changed passwords, what, 12, 14 years ago? It was recently after I was got on, and unfortunately, the changing process did not work very well for the superintendent, so we haven't touched it since. We wanted to. And we've been trying real hard for the last 2 years, and it keeps getting pushed back. We're hoping to do it this fall. But how do you deal with that? When there's a bad experience and the whole school gets, the whole district gets kind of, doesn't like it.
We got lucky. We did it, so we had the support of our superintendent. Staff was getting upset all over the place, because it was the first time in 15, 20 years that we had a mandatory password change. But we had superintendent, so we had to do it 3 months later because people kept clicking on the phishing attacks. Superintendent said, do it, go for it.
And now do you have a routine change or?
Now, once a year.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what we do for staff also. We have, the passwords go for a year, but there wasn't a complexity. And it was cost, so we're going the route of getting the student password changes in first, so that they get used to this. We've just gone from a 6 to an 8 character with students, but no complexity and no expiration. We've also got a homegrown app where our teachers can change our students' passwords, the students in their class, back to a default set. We use Tools for Unra, and it would set all the students up with a default password coming in. But we didn't require everybody to change it right out of the gate, or put a quick time limit on it, which we actually did 2 years ago, and it was really a bad idea. Just at the next change, and we recommend that they do this before fall, the new password complexity would come into effect. So.
Anybody else has anything to say on that topic? Yeah.
I would say, referencing to syncing them across the apps, I know it's really attractive to use tools like, you want to log into something, it'll say, well, log in with your Google account, log in with your Facebook, log in with your Microsoft. I mean, we're doing the same thing here at the event here. It's one thing for grown-ups to make that decision that they're going to expose more data really than the vendor needed. Because when you authenticate with Microsoft or Google, really what you're saying is, here's my profile, take what you need out of it. You're gonna trust the vendor to only take what they should, right? That's the way those systems operate. But when you instruct kids to do that, there's a pretty good argument to break the furlough to do that, because you're providing more information to that vendor than they really needed to do their work in the first place. So when you talk with families, when you talk with staff about that, be aware of how those kind of authentication systems work.
Well, and also when you're teaching the kids saying, yeah, it's okay to do it with Facebook and Google, and teachers aren't having the conversation of, it's okay to do it here because, but you shouldn't do it here because, you're giving them permission to just use their Google account to log into every other tool that's out there,
Right.
regardless of if it's been looked at or not.
Not only that, if they use their Google school account to log into things, like maybe the college they're gonna go to or something, and then you kill that Google school account, you disabled it, they can't get into anything anymore. So when we set up Google many, many moons ago, we actually set everybody up on apps.nsd.org, and I really want my teachers to be on nsd.org. And Google enables you to make that change really easy. It's called rename. The problem is all third-party apps that the teachers have connected to. And we have found there are third-party apps where I have to change the third-party app before I change Google. There are other ones where I have to change the third-party app after I change Google. And right now we're trying to figure out the best way to deal with this. And I know that we got like 5 or 6 big ones that I've identified, but it's the 30 or 40 small ones that I really have no clue about how to deal with it. So if a child uses your school account as authentication somewhere else, you need to let them know that's temporary. And if you're using that for Facebook or something else or whatever, the minute I disable that account, you've totally lost access and you're not going to get access. You know, you got anything stored up there, it's gone. You can't get to it again. One big thing for me is, do you want to train more than just your staff? Good password practices is good internet practices. You're hopefully you're training the students on it, right? And I think you should also go off and possibly consider maybe setting up trainings at PTA meetings. Hey folks, you guys may wanna consider this. All your data is up there, all your student data is up there. Whether you like it or not, it's gonna be up there. You carry around a cell phone, you are carrying around a tracker. Google is tracking wherever you go. You can go to the Google site, go to a PTA meeting perhaps and show. Guess what? This is where I went for the last 3 weeks. They know exactly every city, every route I took, everything. Anybody can do that, and it's by default. You try to turn that off on Google, on an Android phone, and it's really hard to keep it off. Pretty much any function you use says, hey, do you mind turning that back on? I'm guessing most people don't understand that or know about that. So do you want to spend some time training them? Because this is going to affect their students and stuff like that. Or if they go home, their students go home and they hear one thing at school and they see their parents doing something totally different. One thing that we're looking at is an identity management tool. We have a homegrown system and it's basically outgrown itself. It's been around for about 12 years. We've been happy to have it. But there's so many things with all the cloud services and stuff that we're being connected to and how they all handle it, that we're definitely looking at some sort of identity management tool. We haven't really picked one yet. I think we're going to pick one over the next year or so. I would strongly encourage people to look at some. There's been a couple of vendors here that offer them. You can also go online. There's 2 or 3 vendors that specialize in school districts. We're definitely different than places like, Exxon or some big corporation. Right? We've got some very unique characteristics we have to deal with. Finally, then, it does come down to school responsibility. What type of things are you going to say, this is part of responsibility? We're going to teach the kids how to do it, and we're going to teach the families also. We're going to try to train our staff how to do it. How do we train them? You might have seen some people that will sell you these, hey, we'll practice phishing attacks against your staff. I would avoid that at all costs. The problem with that is you send out this fake phishing mail, your staff will click on it. When they click on it, it takes them to a site saying, guess what, you gotta go through 1 hour of remedial training not to click on phishing emails. They've done a lot of statistics on that, and they find out it doesn't send the right message to your staff. It would be much better to have some sort of a meeting with them, discuss it with them, let them know some of the issues, how we go through some of the stories of how that happens. Like how many school districts here got hit by the mail that the group that was going around faking financial mails, saying, hey, you need to go pay this invoice type thing? Yeah, one, a couple, yeah, something like that. It looks like it comes from your HR director, or your finance director, or somebody. Some districts really got hit pretty hard by that. I don't think anybody up here did. But having people just be aware enough to like move the mouse over something and see if the URL looks halfway decent. So I don't have a whole lot more than that. If anybody has any other questions, it really is wide open here. So questions on what other school districts are doing, I know what we're doing. If you got questions about how we're doing it, I can tell you. Like pain points, you got a pain point. Yeah.
I have a horrible pain point that I'm trying very hard to break the school district of. And it was dummy auto login accounts across all of our elementary labs and all of our elementary cards. They all auto log in with the same account. Tons of these. I keep bringing it up and I just.
Okay, so the concept is you have a role-based account that is used for all your logins on certain groups of computers and stuff, so that anybody who knows the account, and it auto logs in, so people don't even have to know a password to get into it, right? Anybody else have that problem?
We do, and it's mostly
Yeah.
But that's why like a QR code or
So one of the things that we do with the generic accounts that we do give out, because we're mostly Windows Active Directory, so I don't know this with like environmental problems. But we do, there's a field in every user account, log on to a workstation and you can lock them to it. And so we do that, and it takes a little bit of training and teaching your tech staff how to, sorry. So it takes a little bit of training and teaching your group of people how, what to look for, but you basically go to that log on to workstation list and you paste those computer names in. And if you have Wi-Fi, you have to include like your servers that dish out the Wi-Fi if you want to be able to use that in your web filtering. But it does allow them to basically say, this account can only be used in this lab here, period. Nobody else can use it anywhere else. And it limits that. I can show you that. You want to see it?
I do see that as
Okay.
well.
One of our pain points that we have is that for a lot of our generic accounts at the K through 2 grade is that the teachers write the username and password on the whiteboard in the lab that is free access, that anyone can just walk in and see this password.
Yeah, we've actually had that issue for years and years and years.
Why no, whatever your strings.
We had that issue for years and years and years at Edmonds too, and it was a real fight to get rid of the like student. Oh, I need this in the library. Oh, I need this for the K2s. We did finally get it out. We do use Clever also. It sounds like ClassLink would also be a good alternative. So for the K2s, they can log in with their Clever badges or a cute little avatar. But we also, for the public, so that this was kind of a, here's a treat to people and to our communities that came in, we publish a daily Wi-Fi password. So that when a community member comes in, they can get on a guest Wi-Fi account with a daily changed password. So that took some of the sting away from it.
Any other pain points here?
Well, I was just gonna mention, one of the additional problems, so many of these issues are, we have trouble getting them addressed, since I'm the guy who has to try to take this, escalate it within North Shore and get it passed, is we'll describe what our pain points are with this process, and you hear yourself as you're describing it to the superintendent or somebody, realizing this really isn't a pain point for you though. I mean, it's a problem for us, but the administrators who you need to get approval, they say, well, this doesn't sound worse than me trying to get everybody in the district to change their password, so I'm not gonna do that. Unless you can find things like those guest passwords, to say, remember those occasions where some kid was being inappropriate with his computer and we really wanted to find out who it was, so that we could, not punish the kid as much as get them on the right path. As long as we have these generic logins, I have no idea who that kid was. You didn't make that kid actually authenticate to anything. It's just a student. So our forensics stop right here then. And those are the kind of things where I think you can personalize it for someone where they can say, okay, this really does create an issue for us. Those are helpful.
With looking at going to more of simplified password or passphrases, if you take complexity off, you're sort of left with just possibly enforcing length. So are you settling on a length, or how do you decide to have some?
Right now, we're at 12 characters. I'm thinking we're gonna be pushing that up a little bit. We haven't totally decided, it keeps getting pushed off. I would like it to see it around 16 to 24 characters. And then if you wanna do 12, you have to change it. If you do 16 to 24, then you don't have to change it. And so,
with giving that option, is that sort of the trouble trying to find systems that'll support sort of a if-then?
Well, again, that assumes that we're gonna have in some way that we can then push these passwords out to systems that will actually support, like our business system won't right now. We do have a patch for it, that'll fix the problem. It's gonna be really interesting, we're in the chicken and egg. Everybody thinks they're typing in upper and lowercase characters, but that's not what the system is storing. So how do I flip the bit that says, great, now it's gonna all be uppercase? How do we tell everybody that, hey, all your passwords switched to uppercase, can you go in and please change them?
You just said, I just wanted to ask what you said about the 12 or 16 character password length.
It's a length.
So would you do that, would you basically give someone, would you give like a staff member an option, if you only wanna make it 12, then you have to change it, and if it was
Year,
16,
yeah.
then maybe with Active Directory, give them a password policy based on a group membership, or how are you achieving that?
We actually don't use Active Directory, I use
Okay.
OpenLDAP.
Okay.
And we actually have a tool that looks at it, and so we would say, hey, the password is gone, right?
But we would actually look at the length of the password, doesn't
Yeah.
identify based on what they tell you that they're
No,
going to
no,
do.
actually look at what we.
And would you
have.
make that different for staff versus students, or?
I don't think so. Again, I don't have much control over that, we haven't changed in 12 years, so who knows whether this will happen. But we have, with the Nist Standards, we now have something that we can go back to the senior administrator, hey, these are what they say now. This will make life easier for a lot of people. If you allow us to say, let's say 16 characters, you guys don't have to change again. Cool. That's a pretty big carrot, I think. At least we're hoping it is. I actually have another issue that we've run into, and that's with Google. And Google won't take 8-character passwords, right? You have to have more than 8?
Yeah, minimum 8.
Yeah, minimum of 8. We've got a lot of systems and teachers that create 8 characters.
You do less if you're synchronizing from different systems.
Yeah, we actually push it into Google.
Yeah, if you're using GCDS, you can do less than 8.
Okay.
We have some users that are grandfathered in. When we first got Google, they set a shorter password, and it hasn't made them change, but any new accounts have to be 8 characters.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure when they started requiring it, but we've had Google for, I don't know, probably at least 8 years now, so.
Cool. Any other pain points or ideas that you use in your district that has been a good thing that's really worked out for you?
So many years ago when we did, many years ago when we did force password changes for staff and changed our password policy, this just might be helpful for other people. We actually proactively had our help desk work with each of our schools and go through and say, okay, you guys are gonna change your password today, and then the next week they did another school, so that most people had changed their passwords by the time we flipped that switch in AD, and that kind of minimized the support requirements in terms of the calls, things like that, so it worked pretty well.
Before we did our forced password reset during the summer, we took about a year and a half to implement a self-service password reset. So that way it's a very easy way for them to be able to change their own password. And, there's a lot of different ones out there, but we took that time ahead of time and tried to get people on board with that, and I think that helped our process. So just having an easy way for them to be able to do that without having to wait for IT.
That's a good idea. How about people that deal a lot, again, with various cloud services? So we use something called Who Knew It, and we're always having problems with passwords not being synced correctly and stuff like that. Does anybody else have that problem? How about name changes? Does people have problems with name changes in passwords? I'm seeing a few nods there. The name change is just plain painful, right? Yes.
Password changes are difficult on Macs, period. Key changes running into that.
So we're definitely gaming a lot the name change issues and trying to keep the passwords in sync during the course of the name change across all of the different systems. Any other pain points that people have with passwords, or things that they do that they think are really cool in their district? What do people think about trying to teach the parents? Yay, nay, bad idea? Okay.
They're involved with the schools and the buildings, the PTO. If you don't get parent buy-in, it's harder to get teacher buy-in. Teachers feel pressure from the parents, and so if the parents buy into it, I see how that could be a really good tool to get the kids on board, which then forces our teachers and the rest of the staff, the people that we're having problems with trying to get these passwords and to understand the security of it.
That's a good point.
I think the idea of getting the PTA involved with there is just a great one on a number of different levels. One is with PTAs love it when you offer to come in and help them with the agenda item or be involved. They eat that kind of stuff up. And it does give you just this great opportunity to connect with your community in a different way rather than them calling up because they're mad about something instead. So I think if there's an opportunity to get from the PTA, definitely.
Anything else that people want to discuss about passwords or password management tools they've used? Why everybody's so quiet? You must be right before dinner.
A good way to get out to parents too, especially from my own parental experience. I look at the school, my district, my kid's school district Facebook a lot, and I think a lot of parents do. Putting maybe a fun video about password reset and putting it on the Facebook that they'll actually watch, because everybody watches stupid Facebook videos constantly.
That's actually not such a bad idea. So one thing I keep thinking about, and I haven't figured out a way to do this, is to make it like a game or have some sort of reward for the best, perhaps the school that gets most of the kids changing their password. They get a pizza party, I don't know. But something to make it fun. Make it so it's not a burden, and they have some reason, like what the keynote speaker said, right? You get people to take ownership and membership of that community, and you can do the same thing with the password management, taking care of passwords. I know some companies will actually try to shame people into it. Hey, guess what? Your account got phished. Here's a list of all the people who have their accounts broken into. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm going to use a carrot, but I know places that do that.
Well, Steve, when you get that game, can you put it on the ACPEnw forum so we can all see it, because I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it would be neat to have something like that. I have no idea how to do it though. I haven't figured that out yet. But it would sure really neat to have something that would make it fun for people to change their passwords.
Maybe a dumb question. What are you, I guess, how are you finding out that are you guys dealing with phishing attacks or any account hacks or hacking in general?
We basically track all the email going in and out of our servers. And so all of a sudden we will see a whole bunch of bounce backs. Guess what? Somebody got broken into. I also have 2 or 3 scripts that check for somebody who all of a sudden is sending emails of 50 or more recipients outside the district. So we can usually track them within 12 hours or so. That happens overnight. We're actually getting pretty good at actually doing the forensics and tracing down where the account was hacked or where they were logged into. Our most recent one was really fascinating. We had a teacher who had a Mac and somebody had installed a keylogger on it. And the reason we know this is because she would change her password, and then literally at 3 o'clock the 3 o'clock in the morning the next day, somebody would log in with her and start spamming everybody again. After about the third time of this, we're saying, okay, it's gotta be her Mac, her iPhone, or some device at home. And we had her bring in her Mac, and we wiped it, we gave her a new Mac, and then they haven't broken in since then. So I'm sure that that Mac has some sort of a key lock. That was literally our worst case. But normally, our spam filter or email will get a bunch of bounce backs, or else we'll get an account get disabled because all of a sudden we notice they start sending a lot of bad stuff out.
What tool is that though? Like, are you guys just using scripting language, or are you using server-based? Like,
It's all done on the server. It's, I'm over 30, so I write in Perl.
okay.
If you're under 30, you'll be writing in Python. So I have a bunch of Perl scripts there,
Okay.
and then we actually, our mail filter will see all the bounce backs.
Gotcha.
And we just basically go in and look for undelivered, and if I see a whole bunch of undelivered,
Sure.
okay, let's go talk to that person. And most of the time, I don't think it's their fault. I don't know how that gal got the key logger. It's really fascinating. You'll see one group of people collect the password, and then a whole separate group actually starts doing the spams. And if you watch your logs, you'll see this happen. You know, well, 3 o'clock here, they actually collected the password and they tested that it worked, so they logged in once or twice just to test it. And then bingo, at 6 o'clock in the morning, somebody starts just spewing stuff all over the place from a whole different state or a whole different country.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're fully Office 365, and if somebody gets hacked sitting on spam, like I get it all into my junk email, alerts me, plus also it automatically shuts off the email account to stop emailing, and I know exactly who it was. But I just got alerted to the advanced threat protection piece of Office 365. I'm looking at that, it will pull the link out and test the link before getting to the right person. And then there's another piece where there's some analytics where it costs me more, and then you can actually see where in the world it came from. But if it was,
But Lightspeed has a similar
Lightspeed had,
thing where they do the safe links. And anytime a link is in an email, it basically provides a totally different link. Lightspeed does. And then you click on that link and it sends you through the Lightspeed filter. And then Lightspeed identifies whether it's good or bad. And then if it's good, then it sends you through to the actual link. But it does that for every single email. Every link in any email. So we had to like strip out links from signatures, because a lot of the signatures were doing that, and that just puts more and more on that Lightspeed filter.
Sure. That's good.
So is that for incoming and outgoing, or just incoming?
Both.
Oh,
That sounds pretty good. How many people, I'm just want to ask you, because we're kind of changing a little bit here. Google, we actually do pretty good with, Google does pretty good. Every now and then one of our kids' accounts will be broken into. But we did have one episode where Google just disabled the account. And want to tell us why? Has anybody had that happen to you? Somebody over there? So what was it that happened to you when they did that? I'm sorry.
I got the information secondhand, so I didn't get the details about it,
Oh,
but
okay.
just that an account had been disabled by Google because of repetitive attempts to.
Okay, so I can tell you what I found out when that happened to us. It was a DCMA takedown notice. The kid had a bunch of copyrighted videos and they were being shared out. And I had a very, very long discussion with Google about this because according to the lawyers, they can't tell us why. And I basically explained to them that we own the kids. We are responsible for that kid. If you don't tell us what's going on, we have a serious problem here. Number one is they can't do any homework. We're a Google-based district. Number two is we need to know what he did. I mean, if he's sharing out something really bad, we need to know about it because we're responsible for it. So I'm just worried, if all of a sudden an account just gets totally disabled, you will have to work hard to get through Google support, but eventually if you keep banging on them, they will let you know what happened. And you can tell, hey, is this a DCMA takedown notice? And they are gonna try to change their processes. I don't know if they have yet. We haven't had this happen again since then. It was, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. But it took a while, I mean, like several days to get them to admit that what had happened. And then once they did, I said, great, let me know what it is. I'll log in, we'll clean out the directory. I got no problem doing that. We'll then, let the principal know. They'll have a discussion with the kid and we'll get it fixed in a day. But it literally took 2 or 3 weeks to get to that point. So if Google just arbitrarily takes one of your accounts offline, that's something you should think about. That might be the problem.
I'm interested in how many other folks, and again, this is really isn't a password issue, but it's a compromised account issue. How many other people have had problems with internet service providers flagging you as a spam source as a district, so then your emails start getting throttled? I mean, it seems like it's every other month we find out, somebody else has said, too much spam has been coming out, we're gonna quarantine you guys for a little bit. You guys see that?
Essentially linked it to one of our offsite, our adult living programs, where it's not a housing situation, but they go into an apartment to learn how to live as adults. And they apparently they had malware on their computer that was causing, basically it was spamming CenturyLink so much that it was shutting CenturyLink down and they had to block the access.
I mean, for me, that's another great point where you can bring it up with folks who wouldn't normally be interested to say, hey, you want to send out all these emails to your parent community. You've got a lot of parents who are on Yahoo or MSN or whatever. Your ability to do that is going to be severely restricted if you don't help us get a hold of this problem. And that, people understand that. They want to know, why aren't our emails going out in a timely manner? I said, well, because MSN will only accept 50 at a time from us now.
I have another question along that. So here's one of my pain points. SPF records. How many people here have got problems trying to fit everything into an SPF record because now all of a sudden you've got 20 different hosted services that want to send out as you? Does anybody know kind of what I'm talking about here? Okay. If somebody wants to send out as you, for example, Blackbird, Parent Link, some hosted service you have, you've got to allow them, you have to tell the email servers that this email server from a different domain can send as nsd.org. Unfortunately, SPF records have a hard limit on how long they can be. So I've got my nsd.org mail server that I own, and my SPF records, every time they add in another service, I'm trying to figure out some way to cram it into that little bit of space I've got to stick it into.
So I've seen, just to answer that, I've seen
I was just gonna say, when I've been trying to trace through spam sources before, I've seen when you look up someone's record and it references another record. So I haven't personally done it, but it's possible that maybe you can make your own internal record that points to some of those.
They basically
doesn't
limit you
include,
to, they limit you to 256 characters.
even expanded with an include?
3 lookups. So
Okay.
they're doing a DNS lookup and they have very severe limits on how many you can do. So like let's suppose that you're up in Google, what do you do if you want Who Knew It to send through your Google account? Anybody has to worry about that?
We haven't since we've gone hosted with most of the big services.
So like if you're hosted on Google, so how would you say to Google, I want to allow this other service to also send through my Google account?
Oh, we don't route that way. We do not route that way.
I don't deal with DNS at all. It's just Office 365. It's in the portal. It's in the other portal. It's a whole list. It's kind of yeah.
because I know there's include command, and I think that's how they do it.
This is, I'm just curious how that works with a hosted system, because I know how it works with the system I own, but if I got Office 365 or Google, I don't know how I'm going to set the SPF records up in there so that who knew it, and apparently from Blackboard and Canvas, if we decide to pick that for our LMS, we'll be able to send things through that as NSD.org. I just wonder if anybody else has run into that problem.
Yeah, we've had those same problems. Perfect example, Destiny wants to be able to send find records out. And so if you're having somebody host that for you or something else, if you add that though, they have no security within Destiny. They can spoof any address in your email because it doesn't make them send as themselves. Out of Destiny, they just fill in what email address they want to be in the from field basically. And so that's something we've talked to them about, that they need to somehow limit them to only send from their own name, their known account, rather than just being able to type in anything into that field. So we've been dealing with that with a lot of vendors. And a lot of those things are ending up in people's spam now that mail clients are better identifying them, and they're thinking they're spoofing their addresses.
Yes, got a question over here.
My question, just to answer, I believe that in Google, you can just set up that ACPEnw relay to the IP address of the service that will just send email through your district.
So will that allow that person to send as my Google? I don't think so. I mean, I can send it.
Not as your domain, but allows you
Yeah,
to
and that's what we're being asked to do. You know, ParentLink wants to send out emails as nsd.org, so it doesn't look like it's coming from ParentLink, right?
external services to imitate our domain.
Okay, any other questions, just general IT questions people have? We've talked a little bit about passwords and email. Yeah.
I don't know if it's in the scope of this session, but I was wondering if anybody's doing two-factor, because we're getting ready to do it. Any lessons learned that anybody wants to share?
Up here.
We forced it on our district office, so to kind of test it out. So far, I think it's okay. You hear a lot of groaning, and a lot of people get frustrated. And I always kind of joke about it and say, "Yeah, darn security." I don't know. It'll be interesting. We're using it as kind of a testing ground and trying to show everybody that, like, hey, our superintendent is doing it. That's why we're saying you guys have to do it versus the other way around, which a lot of people think that, like, oh, they don't ever have to do what we have to do because they're just the admins, they don't know what they're doing or don't ever have to follow the rules. So it's been interesting thus far. I haven't heard a lot of complaints, but I'm also not standing next to somebody when they sign in all the time. So it's very, very possible they absolutely despise it, but obviously we try to do a really good job of reminding them why it was a really, really good idea and what the purpose of it is, and allowing them to understand that, you know, you have the option of an SMS, you have the option of, you know, the password, the number generator from Google, you have the Google app where you just have to press the yes icon when it pops up. There's a lot of different options as far as that goes. Recovery codes, there's a lot of things to it, but to let them know why they're doing it, not just, hey, you have to do this, kind of like we do with passwords. We're like, you have to change it. And they're like, why? We're like, because it's safe. Nobody seems to really buy that, so it's interesting, very much so. We would want to do it more, but it'll be really, really interesting to see how the district office handles it, to see if we keep pushing it out, so.
It does seem like one of the topics that, as it becomes more commonplace with other systems, I would hope that we're gonna benefit from how they have to manage their identity the rest of their lives, but I'm not sure if we're there yet. Yeah, I wish it was true. That would be, actually would be a great session for next year that I've just volunteered you guys to go with.
Thank you.
Is lessons learned on trying to push
We
out
appreciate it.
two-factor. You bet.
Yeah.
It's in the schedule now, so we can't change it.
See you next year.
Yeah, it'll be Thursday at 3 o'clock right here.
So do you do multiple kinds of two-factor then? You give them large choice?
Well, the idea is with Google, they have the option of being able to use something. I'm pretty loud, but it's up to you. We let them know we get, at least I did, we have a really, really small tech department, so these are really hard for us because everybody's like, oh, we have our desktop team. We're like, oh, we have our team. When I was going around doing it, I was making sure that they were knowledgeable, but not too much where they freaked out. I think a big piece of it is showing them that they have different options that might work better for them, and that's why I gave them those options. As long as they're using the two-factor, that was my biggest step first, is if they're like, yeah, I'm cool with this. If I could give them options as to things that might be easier for them, but still do two-factor, that's why I gave them those options. So whether it was the app that just provides a number that cycles all the time, like you have with like 1Password or LastPass and those guys, fine. It was still Google-based. It was easy. They can just open the app like they do any other app. Whether it was the Google app on the iOS device, which is you just go into it and it says, hey, a device is trying to log in, click yes or no. That's also an option. SMS, we let them know, hey, SMS is an option. A lot of people went with SMS. There were some people that really liked the idea of just pulling up the app, typing in the number. I let them know, hey, this is constantly going. It's not internet-based. You don't have to worry about an SMS being able to get through or not get through. This might be a better option if you're somebody who lives out in the sticks and don't have good service where you're waiting for a text message to come through. You might not get it in time. In the case of using an application, it's based off an algorithm, and so it's just spitting out numbers all the time, and you can use it in that case. So it was more of, hey, what if we give you these great things to do without letting them know this is also just still two-factor authentication. We still win, but they can at least, and like you said with yours, why don't we make it easier on the user so they want to do it versus making it a pain in the butt for them. So I don't know if everybody's going to do it, but we at least let them know those options were there. And I think overall, if they get more comfortable with the system of two-factor authentication, I'm hoping that they understand that they should be using this just outside of things and remind them of why passwords are important. And it's not just because we want to make your life a living hell. We try and remind them, like, by the way, that password you just used, you also use in your bank. What if they hack that? Somebody's going to go to your bank. I'm like, wait, what? That kind of idea to continue to pass that knowledge on and push it just out, not just inside the district, but outside the district as well. So.
Okay, that's all I've got. I appreciate everybody coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.